Welcome everyone, and thanks for joining us today. So we're going to have a little bite-sized update for you all from Katrina, who works for the FSB. She's going to give us a roundup of what's available and what's going on within the business community. So over to you, Katrina.
Thanks, Samantha. I know this is a bite-size, so I'm going to keep this really top line and a few headlines of things that you either need to keep abreast of, things that are changing this month, and things that are coming down the track. So first things first, we've seen some changes to the job retention scheme kick in this month from the 1st of August. Now, this is realistically the start of the tapering down of that scheme. So from the 1st of August, any employer, so if you've got any staff on furlough or you're planning on furloughing them at any point between now and the end of the scheme on the 31st of October, you now have to start paying national insurance contributions and any applicable pension contributions as part of that job retention payment. Government is still going to pay 80% of the wages. You'll claim exactly as you have done all the way throughout this process, and you will use that same portal to work out those contributions that you now need to pay. There is a calculator on there, but please do be aware that you do now have to start contributing. 1st of September, you'll have to start contributing a little bit further. The government will start to taper down their payment to 70% of staff salary, and you'll be required to pay 10%. Again, 1st of October, it will change again. You'll be required to pay 20% of any staff that are still on furlough at that point. The government will pay 60%, and then as of 31st of October, that's it. At the moment, we understand it will cease to exist. Now, we are campaigning for that scheme to be kept open for either sectors or areas that are still either under lockdown measures. We know that's happening in parts of the country already. There are likely to be more. But also there are still some sectors, probably outside of what you do, but things like beauty, they're still really struggling. They can't go back to full capacity. Theatre, a lot of entertainment, comedy clubs, all of that kind of thing, still can't go back to work. So we're really campaigning for that scheme to stay in place, but of course can make no promises. The word at the moment is it will fully close on the 31st of October. Now the good news is for anyone that you keep employed past the 31st of January, for anyone that's been on that job retention scheme at some point in 2020, you will be able to claim £1,000 bonus for them in February next year. So hopefully that'll be a real nice strong start to the year for you, for any staff that you've furloughed at some point and managed to retain. So fingers crossed that's going to work just as smoothly as the job retention scheme has done. Elsewhere, what's changing this month? Now, we've seen just over a week ago the introduction of the Eat Out to Help Out scheme. So I'm sure I don't need to introduce that to you, but for anyone that isn't quite sure, that's the 50% off dining Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday for the month of August, and you can still apply for that. We didn't think you could retrospectively apply, but actually you can. If you've not got on that scheme yet and you'd like to, because you've seen the benefits, you can still apply through the government's website. That's been open just over a week, and it seems to be having the right impact. We heard in just a week 10.5 million meals were served under that scheme, and obviously that's fantastic. That's given a real boost to the hospitality industry, and there's another 3 weeks of that to run yet. So that seems to be having the right impact. So you can still register if you haven't yet, and hopefully for those of you that are already using, you are absolutely seeing the benefit of that scheme. What else is changing? On the 28th of August, we are going to see the full closure of local authority grant scheme that was opened back in March. That was to award grants to people with premises primarily. So that really does affect your industry. People with hotels, restaurants, cafes, bars, pubs could apply for a £10,000 or £25,000 grant from the local authority. They then opened a smaller pot of money, which was called the Discretionary grant fund. That was for those that had been largely left out of that original swathe, and we know B&Bs were quite targeted in that discretionary grant because you fall slightly out of paying business rates and more council tax. All of those schemes finally have to close on the 28th of August. So if you've not yet applied and you think you might be eligible, if you think you are in any way eligible, please contact your local authority now, because that will close quite soon. We've campaigned for that money that's left over. There isn't much in Lincolnshire, which is actually a good sign, because our local authorities have paid out anywhere between 84% and 97% of the funds they were allocated. So that's good news. It sounds like everyone who's eligible has gone for it. There's a tiny little bit of money left, and we're campaigning for that money to stay in the county to help out businesses that haven't had any other sort of support. But the word is at the moment that money's got to go back to Bays, straight back into government, but we'll keep you posted on that. Only some of the councils have already closed their doors on that unfortunately. East Lindsey, North Kesteven and South Kesteven have already closed just to high demand. But Boston Borough, Lincoln City, South Holland and West Lindsey are still open until the 28th of August. So if you in any way think that you're eligible for one of those grants, get in now before it closes, because that will be the end of it. What else is changing this month? We've also seen some changes come through as a result of the economic statement that came through in July. So we know there's a huge thrust behind job creation, or there's going to be over the coming weeks and months. So as promised, the boost to the apprenticeship scheme started on the 1st of August. So if you want to take on an apprentice aged under 25, you can claim a £2,000 payment from the government. Now, those jobs have got to be viable. You've got to be able to provide the training. So, of course, there's some caveats. Now's the time to get registered on that. So you can either look into it directly through the government's website, or you can go to a traditional apprenticeship provider like Legat or any of the local colleges. That is live. One thing that hasn't gone live, which was announced in that economic statement, was the Kickstart scheme. Now, this is a huge pot of money that's been put aside to help young people coming out of education, or those that have been on universal credit for quite some time and haven't been able to get into the job market as yet. We were expecting that to launch in August and the guidance to come out in July. Now, that's been put on hold, and I think I can tell you why. I think there is a concern that because these are fully funded places at work placements for 6 months with all of the on costs as well paid for by the government, there has been a concern that some organisations could make staff redundant and bring on someone from the Kickstart scheme to fill that gap and have those wages paid for 6 months. I think the government have slightly pulled back on that to avoid unnecessary redundancies, or to be seen to encourage redundancies and offer businesses some resource at the same time. So I think we will still see that scheme come to fruition, but I think they will hold off potentially until the autumn when the job retention scheme winds down. So do hold fire on that, because I know we've seen a lot of interest in that, particularly from the hospitality trade, because it's a fantastic way to get some much needed resource, particularly over this busy summer season, and get those fully funded workplaces for 6 months. You can understand now why the government are perhaps pulling back. The messaging around that hasn't been fantastic. There hasn't been a lot of clarity over when it might go live, why there's been the slight pullback there. But we do expect that to come to fruition, but I think it might well be the autumn before we see that. But again, still will be a fantastic scheme, great way to get some staff on board, some new talent, and a good way to help support your community, to get people who have struggled to access the work market, get them into work and help them to succeed. But we aren't quite seeing that go live yet. There's not even any guidance out either, which we were expecting by the end of July. Now, I know Visit Lincoln will absolutely keep you updated when that does go live, and I'm also happy to stay in touch with you and help guide you towards accessing that when the time comes, but we're not quite there yet. I think for this month, that's about it. That's quite a lot to roll with, so I won't overwhelm you with any more. But hopefully, as things unfold further, and either we have any further lobbying wins around keeping the job retention scheme going, keeping some of that money that's not been paid out in grants in the county, I'll absolutely keep you up to date with that. But for now, that's quite a lot to deal with. I'll leave it at that, I think.
Thank you. Thanks, Katrina. Do appreciate I know it's a bit of a speedy roundup and it's really informative, but thank you. I was just thinking the apprenticeship scheme, is there, is there an age limit? So when we think of apprenticeships, traditionally, most people think of young people, but is that extended to a bit of a wider age range?
Yes and no. So the £2,000 payment, that's for if you take on an apprentice aged under 25. You can take on an apprentice aged over 25, but I believe the payment limit lowers to £1,500. So yes and no. It's just there's a slight tiering of age level. So but there isn't an automatic cut-off that if someone's 25 and one day you can't take them on, they will just fall into a different tier of payment that you can request.
That's good though, because some businesses may be looking, depending on what type of business it is, may need a slightly more mature person, but they're able to access them through the apprenticeship scheme. And also likewise, you do find that some people want a change of direction in their own career. Absolutely. And they may have started out as a younger person doing one thing and then thought, actually, this isn't quite for me. I want to really get into hospitality or tourism. And this is a really good way of accessing the industry in this sector and starting, getting the basics and starting in there and then working your way up through your career. I think it's really good.
Absolutely right. And I think we are going to see, as the unfortunate result of a lot of redundancies, a lot of career changes. I think people are going to come through this process, lockdown, going through redundancy, and really, really evaluate what they want to do with their life and with their career. And we know in Lincolnshire we've got a really, really strong heritage and hospitality economy. Why wouldn't people want to fall into that? So it's a really good way, like you say, of accessing some young and fresh talent, people straight out of school or education, but also some people that have got some of the skills to bring that are coming from a different background, and as a result of redundancy or just evaluating what they want out of their career, wanting to change direction. So you're absolutely right, this is a really good way to tap into that.
Yeah, and I think there's lots of, once you are in this industry, there's lots of training provided as you go along. So if you do want to consider it as a career, there's nothing to hold you back really. You can progress as quickly as you want to within hospitality, as long as you put that effort in and the hard work. There's lots of courses to access, so I think it's a really good thing. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yours is a sector as well that really thrives on transferable skills, people that come from marketing backgrounds, customer care, engineering, all of those really practical skills. It's an industry that thrives on people coming with transferable skills. So this could be a really, really promising thing for this sector. So I hope we see really big take up of that in the county. Really,
I hope, I do hope so. And I think in terms of people taking a look at, assessing and redirecting what industry they want to work in, the opportunity is there now to look at it. And even if you, as you just mentioned, engineering, I think that lots of people immediately, when we talk about hospitality and tourism, they think of hotels and waiting on or working behind a bar or on the hotel reception or a B&B or a self-catering accommodator. But actually engineering is also included in that. There's all the people who look after all the fridges that go on within bars, huge kitchens, commercial
people
kitchens,
that hire boats, all of that sort of stuff.
A lot. The kitchen equipment is utilised very well, and all the people in the background that we don't they're not front of house, so we don't always have them, but lots of opportunities back of house that also are there.
Yeah, hopefully this is the start of us seeing some recovery as well. With your industry above all has really, really, really suffered from March onwards. So all of these things are there to kind of underpin recovery now. I hope our hospitality and visitor economy in the county will really, really take advantage of them. Please do anything that you think you are eligible for, that you fit into the bracket for, then please apply for them and see where you get, because they are there to help you recover. And I want to see Lincolnshire's businesses particularly use them to their full advantage so that we can recover and come back strong.
Thank you. And are you okay, Katrina, if anybody asks me and they've got a specific question, are you happy for me to just drop them your email? And
Absolutely.
Perfect.
No problem.
Thank you very much. It's lovely for you to give your time up today to speak to everybody, and I do appreciate it. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.